Welcome back to Behind the Mask. I'm excited and a little bit nervous about today's episode. Up until this point, the conversations and the things that I've talked about have been, lighthearted. And some of them, it has been things that I've struggled with and been things very near and dear to my heart. But I haven't gone real deep into some of the testimony that I have about my life and really... you all know that I had a breaking point where I wanted to quit and give up this life as far as motherhood and being a wife. But I haven't gone a lot into the background of how I grew up and just some things that I experienced along the way. Today I want to talk about something and I'm going to try to get through it without maybe crying and being silly, but there was a time... And it's going to have to do with church. So if you're not into the whole church idea and you're not really feeling church or whatever, and that's just kind of what it is. That's what I do. That's what I've done. And my husband is pastor. Our life is church. And so this is kind of going to be a little bit about my road through church and where I am. Not all of it, but just a little piece that I felt important that I wanted to share, having to do with my mom. As I'm getting older now, and I'm fixed to experience my first child leaving home. And I think back to when I left home. And as a teenager, you go through things with your mom where you hate her, and then you love her, and then you hate her, and then you love her. First, you think she's the most dumbest person on the earth, and you can't stand her. But then you love her because you need something and she's going to help you and she gets you through it, right? So my mom and I had a very tumultuous relationship just like that as a teenager. I hated her. I know she hated me. I was terrible. But then when I got older and I needed help and I was getting married. I'm having a household. Mom, I don't know how to do this. Mom. And I'm calling my mom constantly asking questions. And I think, wow, Mom, I really am sorry for all that hell I put you through as a teenager. I really didn't mean it. And something happened as we began getting involved in the church. Now, listen to me. When I say the church, we go to a Christian church. We are Christians. We believe in Jesus Christ, died on the cross, rose from the dead. We can now have eternal life. Those are my core beliefs, that I believe in Jesus and the resurrection. Okay, that's where I am when I say church. Some people have this weird skewed view of an angry God when I say things like church, and that's not what I believe. I don't believe that we are sinners in the hands of an angry God. And so if that's your filter and that's your view, don't get confused with my God. Okay, I serve a God that is love. Okay, and so when I say church, I hope you don't cringe, because I know I used to. When people would say, well, we go to church, I'd go, it would turn me off of things, because I got so turned off from church for a while. So I hope you can hear me with an open lens, with this open filter, and really hear my heart. And when I say church, I'll try to explain what I mean by that, because not everybody, thinks... like I've said before, I told my kids, diversity is how we learn. And so a lot of people have a diverse way of thinking, and I have to remember that not everybody thinks the same as me and has that same background. So when I say church, I mean like the Christian church who believe in Jesus. We started getting involved in church, and because when I grew up, we were not in church. We were kind of like those Christmas and Easter Christians. We went at Christmas and we went at Easter, because I remember getting Easter dresses, and I remember getting Christmas dresses, and I remember going to a church service. But we were not regular Sunday attenders. We were literally like Christmas and Easter. It got a little more regular when I got to be a teenager, because I got involved with the youth group. And so it got a little more regular when I was in high school, but really as a growing up, I was not a church goer. So then as an adult, learning about some new things that I didn't know, I really went through this time, and y'all, I'm going to get pretty serious for a second. And for the rest of for this podcast, I wanted it to be kind of a serious and just to kind of tell you my testimony. And if there's anybody out there that kind of thinks the same or have been through the same, let me know. I'd love to have dialogue, love to have some questions and comments and things like that with you. But I really wanted to entitle this episode Corrupted by the Church, because I really felt like the church in general kind of put my mom and my relationship kind of separated us, in which I didn't want to have anything to do with my mom, because I really felt like she had been a bad mom. That was my final decision. And that were through teachings that I had learned sitting in a church. And I'll tell you what I mean. Let me give you some background about how I grew up. My parents, my mom was pregnant with me in high school. And so they were very young when they got married. They're still married. Let's see, I like to tease my dad. He likes to try to pretend like it was after they got married. But I say, okay, I'm going to be 43 this year. So they just had their 43rd wedding anniversary. And he'll try to say, no, it's 44 or 45, because he wants to, it's just a running gag that we have. But they've been married for 43 years. And as far as I know, it's been a happy marriage. Now, I know when I was a kid, they had their arguments and they would yell and fight. And then the next day they'd kiss and they were making out in front of us. And it totally grossed us out. Or my dad would grab my mom's butt and pinch her butt. And, we'd all be like, oh, that's gross. And then, a few weeks would go by and they'd have another argument. It was just like a normal childhood. They loved each other. They loved us. We were very poor, obviously. They got pregnant in high school. Yet the thing, they're off to a rocky start already. But, what we didn't have in things we made up for with fun and laughter. We had vacations. I have so many awesome memories of my parents, of things they did with us, a song will come on, and it just reminds me of my mom. My mom sang everything. Everything would remind her of a song, just like my grandmother, her mom, Memes. And that's something my kids always say, if Memes was here, she'd have some song that she made up. And I'm like, those are not made up songs. Those are real songs. Her and Omi, they know a lot of songs. And it was just happy memories, of singing and having fun. Mom introduced me to, because, she was 16-ish or so when she had me. And so, my other grandma would always say that we were both kids and that we raised each other because we're kind of close in age. But, she introduced me to people like Alice Cooper. We listened to Alice Cooper all the time. We listened to Jimmy Buffett all the time. We listened to George Thorogood all the time. Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. These were the kind of things that we listened to at my house. We didn't listen to Wheels on the Bus. Now, we did have our moments where Mom taught me, 5 Little Speckled Frogs and all her little songs. But around the house, when I was growing up, in the car, we had tapes. It was Alice Cooper. It was George Thorogood. These were things, we're listening to in the car. We had Jimmy Buffett on at the house. While she's cleaning the house, she's got Jimmy Buffett going. That's what I was raised on. We watched R-rated movies. We watched television. Mom cussed like a sailor. I heard my dad say a couple cuss words. That's how I was raised. I thought that was normal. I was happy. I was healthy. It was a fabulous childhood. I went to church at Christmas and learned about baby Jesus and how awesome he was. Then I went to church at Easter and learned that he died for me so that I could live for eternity. God was love to me. That's all I knew. I knew baby Jesus was cute in a manger, and then I knew that he died on the cross so that I could have eternal life. That's amazing. God to me as a child and as a teenager was amazing. And unfortunately, I went to church as a grown-up, and all of a sudden this angry God was introduced to me that hated sin and that I needed to get right with God. I'm going to tell y'all a little secret. I never heard that word get right or that phrase get right until I went to this certain church. And I'm not going to say denominations and things, but just this angry God was introduced to me. And at the beginning I thought, But I know baby Jesus is cute. He's a baby. And then the grown-up Jesus died on the cross for me. This doesn't equal up to me. And I couldn't reconcile this in my brain. This doesn't make sense. I've lived for 20 years seeing baby Jesus and love and Mary and Joseph and this is so sweet. And yeah, there was some things and people were trying to kill him and, the king was trying to kill him and they killed a bunch of babies at that time, but God prevailed. And then we'd go at Easter and I'd learn about how awesome he was. And then he died on the cross and that was a terrible thing that happened. But what was amazing was 3 days later that he rose from the dead so that we could have eternity and have life in abundance. That was God to me. And then I'm introduced to an angry God and starts telling me, this church starts telling me that all these things, watching R-rated movies, listening to Alice Cooper, these were bad things. And you better not be doing those things. And you better not be letting your kids do those things. And we were about to get ready to have a family. And I thought, oh my God, what did my parents do to me? And all of a sudden, I'd forgotten about how happy and what a wonderful childhood I had and all these fun memories. And I thought, what did my parents do to me? They raised me on all this crazy music, and we watched R-rated movies, and we watched all these crazy TV shows. We watched TV, and we watched shows about magic. And I remember as like a 6-year-old pulling up to a gas station and Mom giving me money, and I went in and bought her cigarettes. And I remember putting barely reaching the counter and putting the money up there and saying, I need a package of Virginia Slim Menthol Light 120s, please. And the little guy going, oh, that's such a big mouthful for such a little girl. I bought cigarettes as a little kid. At the time, I thought it was amazing. But now here I am introduced to this angry God. And I thought, my parents are terrible. And it put this unspoken strain to where I didn't want to have I did want to have something to do with them because they were my parents, but I wasn't going to allow them to speak into my life anymore. Like, I wasn't taking their advice. I wasn't going to share intimate moments about my family with them anymore. Like, they are on the wrong path, and I'm not yoking myself with this group of people, because that was something else that I learned from the church. That we cannot be unequally yoked with an unbeliever or be yoked with an unbeliever. And it put distance on this relationship. And all of a sudden I went to having this perspective that my mother hung the moon to the church telling me that she was an awful mother. And I bought into it. It took years before I finally, and this is part of that played a lot into the time where I told Kevin that I didn't want to have anything to do with this Christian life anymore because I couldn't live up to the standard that they were trying to get me to live up to, and I've already given up my parents. And I've already given up all of these other things. My sanity is the next thing that's about to go, and I can't do it anymore. If this is what Christian life is, this is Christian living, I don't want to have any part of it. I want my life back. I want to feel like me again. I was happy. God was love to me before I was introduced to this angry God that hated everything. So part of this road of self-discovery is learning that God truly is love. And all those times that I was watching R-rated movies, and that I was buying cigarettes, and that I was listening to my mom cuss, she loved me with all of her heart. And Jesus was there, and he loved me through all of that. And none of it was wrong. None of it is sending me to hell. None of it was evil. My mom was loving me the best way that she knew how, and I had an amazing childhood.